In this tutorial, we'll introduce some basic concepts of Unity and go through the worksheet Introduction to Unity, which you should be able to find on Moodle. Unity is a tool for developing interactive experiences. It combines a number of useful features such as importing assets, laying out environments, defining object behavior through scripting, and building the result into an executable application for video games, augmented reality or virtual reality experiences, and many others. Let's start with downloading the Unity editor. So we go to the official Unity website shown on the screen, click Download, and follow the instructions to install Unity Hub. So here we have the Unity Hub. This is a tool for managing different versions of the Unity editor. So if we go to Installs and Install Editor, then we find Unity 6 and click on Install. Make sure to select the correct modules. We are on Windows right now, so Windows Build Support is selected. If you are on Mac, then choose the Mac Build Support and others if necessary. And we click on Install again. The download process will begin and it may take quite a while to complete. Now let's start a new project. Still in the Unity Hub, we select the projects from the menu on the left and new projects on the right. Choose the correct editor version. Make sure to select the Universal 3D and then name your project. You can use Unity version control or GitHub for managing version control when working with your teammates. Either is fine. For now, we'll just leave it as is. And then we clicked on Create Project. This will take a while. Alright, here we go. A new window should pop out and this is the Unity editor. So, this is what we are going to build today. A rotating table. Let's start by introducing the main components of the Unity editor. On your screen, you should see 4 main sections: the hierarchy panel, the scene and game view, the inspector panel, and the project or console panel. In the middle, for now, is the scene view. This is where you build and arrange game objects in your world. There's also the game view, which you can switch to by clicking the game button. The game view shows how your game or experience will look like and behave to the player when it's running. It displays a specific viewpoint of the scene, rendered through a camera that you've set up. On the left is the hierarchy panel, which lists all the game objects in your current scene, organized in a tree-like structure. For example, the parent here is the sample scene, and it has multiple children objects. On the right is the inspector panel, where you added the property of the selected objects. For example, you can modify an object's material, skill, or position. At the bottom is the project panel. This is where you find the assets folder, which contains all the essential files for your games to run, like models, scripts, and textures, etc. The final one is the console panel, which you can switch to by clicking on the console button here. This is where error messages or warning will appear, mainly for debugging purposes. Okay, let's start from creating a game object. Right-click in an unoccupied space in the hierarchy panel, hover over the 3D object and click Cube. In the inspector, you can change its position by changing the values of X, Y, and Z. Let's put zeros here so the cube is at the center of the scene. Now in the scene view, there are several tools to help you navigate. When you are using the hand tool, you can left-click to move around, right-click to orbit the camera, and hold down Alt for Windows or Option for Mac, and right-click and also drag to zoom in and zoom out. Or you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out as well. Okay, the next one. Click on the object, You could move like this, or click on the gizmo and drag to move the object around. You can see in the inspector, the position value will change accordingly. This is to rotate the object, and change the scale. You can switch between tools by using keyboard shortcuts. Q stands for hand tool for navigation. W stands for move tool, which you can change the position of the game object using gizmo and the arrows. E stands for rotate tool, which you can change rotation on X, Y, and Z axis. And R stands for scale tool, which you can change the scale. Now let's make a table. Click on the cube that we created and change its scale to make it look like a tabletop. Right-click to change its name. Let's create another cube and change its scale and change its scale first. And move it to the corner. Okay, right-click to navigate. You can also switch between changing scale, rotation, position using QWER as shortcuts. Okay, there we are. We rename it to table leg and drag it under tabletop. So now top is the parent. Right-click again. We duplicate the table legs. Ctrl-C and V also work. We move the four legs. You may fly around in the scene view using WASD. And we change the Z value for position to be the same so that they are roughly on the same height. You may want multiple copies of your table in your project. This is easy in Unity with refraps. a way to make game objects into simple assets. So now we create a folder called prefab. And in the folder, we drag the tabletop to a free space in your project window. And this creates a prefab of the table. If you click on it, you can see. You can drag the prefab back into the scene to create an instance of the prefab. The changes to your prefab asset will affect all the instances in the project, so be careful when you change it. Now we are going to create a material for our table. Right-click and select material. We name the material as leg material. We change the color in the base map. Then we drag the material onto the table legs. You can also select them together and drag it into the materials under the mesh renderer. Okay, for the tabletop, let's use texture. Textures are 2D images which can carry more information than a single color value. Textures are also assets and live in the project panel. So let's go to the website shown on your screen and download the texture image. Back to Unity Hub, we select Import New Assets. Select the texture that you downloaded. And we create another folder called Imports. We create a material and name it as wood tabletop. And we drag the texture into base map. And then we drag the material to the tabletop. And finally, we are going to make the table rotate. Select tabletop and then click Add Component. We create a new script named Rotator. Unity uses C# for scripting, and with scripts, you can define how game objects react to the world. Please note that the class name and file name of the script must be the same. There's two main functions defined in the script, the start and update functions. The start function is called before the gameplay begins and before the first frame update. In the update function, we place the code that should be executed for each frame update. This usually includes object movement, responding to user input, etc. In the script, we always have access to the game object the script is attached to and to the game object's transform. In order to let the table rotate, we need to change the rotation component of the table's transform. We add this code in the update function because we want to create a continuous rotation frame by frame. The transform has a function called rotate, which does exactly what we need. The rotate function requires 3 arguments that define a rotation in angles in degrees for x, y, and z axes. So there we go. Well, it's rotating too fast. Let's change it to a smaller value then. Cool, that looks much better. Alright, that concludes this tutorial about Unity.